You're out to a fantastic dinner, you've just finished an incredible meal, and suddenly you are just hyper aware of your waistband.
Oh yeah, the dreaded food baby arrives.
Exactly. You find yourself like subtly trying to unbutton your pants under the table without anyone noticing. I mean, we've all been there.
Right. And we usually brush it off as eating a little too much.
Yeah, or maybe indulging in, the wrong type of food. But today on this deep dive, we are completely rethinking that exact moment.
Because that expanding sensation in your midsection, it isn't just it's not a mild inconvenience. And it certainly isn't a mere cosmetic annoyance either.
Right.
It is a highly specific biological distress signal.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when we feel that intense stretching pressure in our gut, what we're actually experiencing is a literal biological bottleneck.
Precisely. A massive bottleneck.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to transform how you view your own digestion. We're going to take it from this unpredictable, sometimes embarrassing mystery and shift it into what it actually is.
Which is a highly optimized, completely controllable biological machine.
Yeah. But to fix a broken system, we first need to define the mechanics of how it's supposed to work.
Right, the baseline sequence. So to understand how that bottleneck forms, we need to look at how the human digestive ecosystem functions when it is perfectly calibrated.
Because it's an elegant sequential operation.
Right, it really is. When we consume food, our body relies on a specialized class of proteins called digestive enzymes. Their entire physiological purpose is to dismantle massive, complex macronutrients into, microscopic, absorbable molecules.
And there are three main players doing the heavy lifting here.
Exactly. First, you have protease. This acts like molecular scissors to snip long protein chains into individual amino acids.
Okay, protease for protein makes sense.
Then you have amylase, which dismantles complex carbohydrates into simple sugars. And finally, you have lipase, which essentially dissolves dietary fats into usable fatty acids.
Wow, okay. So when everything is functioning optimally, these enzymes act like a perfectly timed assembly line.
That's the ideal state, yes. But the system has a major vulnerability. If your body's enzyme production is low, and this is common, if the environment within your gastrointestinal tract is compromised by chronic stress, that breakdown process just grinds to a halt.
Wait, so the food isn't getting broken down into those microscopic molecules at all, it's just staying complex.
Exactly. And I feel like this is where the system completely breaks down. That mechanical failure is the absolute root cause of the distress signal you mentioned.
Because the food isn't being efficiently absorbed in the small intestine.
Right. So those large, partially digested food particles, they have to go somewhere. They travel further down the digestive tract into the large intestine. And waiting for them, there are trillions, literally trillions of resident bacteria.
And those bacteria are hungry.
Very hungry. They thrive in that dark, oxygen-free environment. And they basically feast on those undigested carbohydrates and proteins through a process called fermentation.
And fermentation produces gas.
Massive amounts of it. What's fascinating here is the byproduct. These bacteria literally exhale gases. Specifically hydrogen, methane, and carbon dioxide.
Oh, wow. So that rapid internal gas production is physically stretching your intestinal walls.
Yes. It triggers the visceral pain receptors lining your gut and causes that visible physical expansion that, you recognize as severe bloating.
Okay, wait, I need to stop you there because this completely shatters a massive mainstream myth.
Mm-hmm.
I have always heard, and I'm sure anyone listening has heard this too, that bloating happens because you swallow too much air.
Oh, right. Aerophagia?
Yeah. You eat your food too fast, you drink a sparkling water, and boom, you're bloated from the air.
You're talking about swallowing atmospheric air. It's an incredibly pervasive idea in wellness circles, but honestly, it is a gross oversimplification.
Really? So the sparkling water isn't the main culprit?
Yeah. No. Yes, gulping air or drinking carbonation might cause a minor temporary distension in your upper stomach, but that usually just resolves with a burp. The clinical reality is that severe, chronic, painful bloating in the lower abdomen is almost always a biochemical failure.
A biochemical failure.
Exactly. It is an enzymatic breakdown failure followed by a massive bacterial fermentation event. It is not merely trapped room air.
So it's like trying to shove an entire solid oak dining room table through a narrow doorway instead of, taking it apart first.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the physics of it.
Right. The doorway gets damaged, the table gets stuck, and the entire house gets backed up behind it.
Yes. Let's take that even further with the clinical notes we have. Imagine your digestive system as a highly advanced automated recycling facility.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The meals you eat are massive steel shipping containers moving down a conveyor belt, and they are filled with locked boxes of extremely valuable resources.
In this scenario, the resources are the nutrients we need to survive, right? So where do the enzymes fit in?
Your digestive enzymes, the protease, amylase, and lipase, they are the highly trained workers inside the facility. They are equipped with specialized keys and laser cutters.
I love that. Laser cutters.
Right. And their sole job is to unlock those massive shipping containers and dismantle the complex materials into individual, usable bricks. Once they're broken down into bricks, they can be smoothly transported out of the facility and into the bloodstream.
But if you don't have enough workers on the assembly line, meaning like your internal enzyme production is tanked, those massive shipping containers just pass through the first part of the facility completely intact.
Exactly. The laser cutters never even scratch the surface, and eventually they reach the end of the conveyor belt, which is the large intestine.
And waiting at the end of the line is a massive, unruly mob of scavengers.
Yes, those are your fermenting bacteria. They aggressively break open those intact shipping containers using brute force.
And that causes total chaos.
Total chaos. They generate excessive smoke and toxic exhaust, which is the hydrogen and methane gas. That exhaust absolutely fills the facility, causing the structural walls to physically bulge outwards.
Which is the bloating.
Exactly. By optimizing your enzymes up front, you ensure the trained workers dismantle everything perfectly, leaving absolutely nothing for the scavengers to ferment at the end of the line.
Okay, so if the issue isn't swallowing air, does that mean our quote-unquote healthy diets could actually be feeding this bacterial chaos if our internal workers are on strike?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I could be eating a massive kale salad with quinoa thinking I'm doing great.
This raises an important question, and the physiological answer is absolutely yes. You could be eating the most nutrient-dense, organic, perfectly macro-balanced meal on the entire planet.
But if the workers aren't there?
Right. If your enzymatic breakdown fails, that pristine, healthy food simply becomes high-quality fuel for the bacterial scavengers. It's not just about what you put in your mouth, it is entirely about what you are mechanically and biochemically capable of breaking down.
Which brings us to a really interesting realization. People talk about their digestion like toddlers.
They really do.
We use phrases like, I have a tummy ache, or my stomach just feels gross today. We treat the gut like this mysterious black box that just, I don't know, randomly decides to punish us.
We do, and honestly, it is a massive mental roadblock. If you want to fix a broken, highly complex machine, you cannot use childish language to describe the parts. You need clinical precision.
Right.
Because when you respect the terminology, you start respecting the biological mechanisms.
I am fully guilty of saying my stomach hurts, when I probably mean my entire lower intestinal tract is currently inflating like a balloon.
Most people are.
But this feels a bit like a biology pop quiz. Why do we need the exact phonetic pronunciation of everyday words like stomach or acid?
Because utilizing precise clinical language stops us from thinking in terms of vague tummy aches. It forces us to treat our bodies like the exact science they are. Let's look at the source notes here.
Okay, let's fix this baseline right now. I want to treat the body like an exact science. I'm going to throw out some common words, and you give me the actual clinical mechanism behind them so we can stop visualizing this wrong. Let's start with a basic one. Stomach.
Okay, stomach. Pronounced stomach. When most people say stomach, they gesture broadly to their entire midsection. Clinically, the stomach is a highly specific muscular organ located high up in the abdomen receiving food.
It's not the whole belly.
No, it violently churns that food, mixing it with specialized juices to initiate the breakdown of tough proteins. So the notes give this sentence. I need to rest before the workout because my stomach is still processing that heavy meal.
You should literally be visualizing a muscular bag physically contracting and bathing food in chemicals.
Exactly.
That immediately changes the picture in my head. Okay, term number 2, enzyme. We've used it a lot, but mechanically, what is it?
Enzyme. Pronounced enzyme. It is a specialized protein produced by your body that acts as a biological catalyst. It dramatically accelerates chemical reactions, digesting food into absorbable nutrients.
Without them, we'd be in trouble.
Without enzymes, digestion would take years. They are the laser cutters, turning complex structures into absorbable nutrients. The sentence here is, chewing your food thoroughly releases a specific enzyme in your saliva that helps digest carbohydrates.
Which perfectly leads to the third term, breakdown. I feel like we use this word casually, like a car breaking down, but biologically, it's an active process.
Breakdown, pronounced breakdown, It is the physiological process of severing the chemical bonds of complex substances, separating complex structures into simpler parts that can pass through your intestinal walls.
Right.
And the sentence, the complete breakdown of complex carbohydrates ensures steady energy levels throughout the afternoon.
Instead of a spike and a crash.
Yeah.
All right, term number 4, and I know a lot of people listening think they have this one mastered, protein. I drink a protein shake after the gym. I know what it is.
Protein. Pronounced protein. You know its application, but clinically, you need to view protein as a macronutrient of amino acids for muscle and tissue repair. It's a dense, complex chain folded into a tough three-dimensional structure.
It requires immense force to unravel, doesn't it?
Immense chemical and mechanical force. The example sentence is, consuming adequate protein after resistance training is absolutely critical for muscle recovery. But again, only if you actually unravel it.
If I just drank it and don't unravel it, I'm just feeding the scavengers.
Got it.
And the final term, number 5, which is required to do that unraveling, acid.
Acid. Pronounced acide. Clinically, an acid is a low potential of hydrogen fluid in the stomach dissolving food and pathogens. We're talking about hydrochloric acid.
Right, powerful stuff.
Extremely powerful. The natural acid in your digestive tract is strong enough to dismantle tough meat fibers within hours.
That completely shifts the mindset. I'm not just digesting my lunch. My stomach is currently deploying hydrochloric acid and targeted enzyme proteins to violently sever the chemical bonds of my food. I mean, it sounds like an industrial operation.
Because it is. And armed with that mechanical understanding, we can actually look at how to stop the bottleneck.
Let's get into the actionable stuff.
There are zero-cost behavioral protocols from our clinical notes that you can use to upgrade this operation. And we begin at the very top of the digestive sequence, literally before the food even hits your tongue.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the first protocol is called the parasympathetic pre-meal prime. And it addresses a biological rule that I had no idea existed. If you are stressed out, rushing, or anxious, your body physically refuses to secrete digestive enzymes.
It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. Your nervous system operates on 2 main channels: sympathetic, which is fight or flight, and parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. If your brain perceives stress, whether that's running from a predator or honestly just aggressively answering work emails at your desk, it diverts all blood flow and energy away from your gut.
It locks the biological doors to digestion.
Exactly. The pancreas receives a signal to halt enzyme production because digesting a sandwich is not a priority when you are trying to survive.
So if I'm eating my lunch while frantically typing an email, I am sending whole shipping containers directly to the scavengers.
You are guaranteeing a massive fermentation event.
Wow. So it's like doing the breathing exercise is essentially rebooting the factory's power grid before turning on the conveyor belt.
Exactly. The fix for this is surprisingly immediate. Protocol 1 dictates that exactly 60 seconds before taking your first bite of food, you completely pause, you step away from the keyboard, and you perform 5 cycles of deep diaphragmatic breathing.
The specific ratio here is inhaling through the nose for 4 seconds, holding that breath for 2 seconds, and then executing a slow, controlled exhale through the mouth for 6 seconds.
Right. That 4-2-6 breathing ratio is incredibly powerful because of the long exhale. When you extend your exhale to 6 seconds, your diaphragm physically moves and stimulates the vagus nerve.
And the vagus nerve is like the biological brake pedal.
Yes, for your heart rate. Lowering your heart rate sends a direct signal to the brain that you are safe. There are no predators. This intentionally shifts your nervous system out of the sympathetic state and into the parasympathetic state.
You are physically commanding the factory to power up.
You are. That neurological shift acts as a green light. It tells your stomach to start pooling acid and your pancreas to open the floodgates, filling your system with those crucial digestive enzymes before the food even arrives.
Okay, so the power grid is on, the environment is primed. Now we actually eat. Which brings us to protocol 2, the mechanical mastication multiplier. Mastication, of course, being the clinical term for chewing.
As we established, digestion begins in the mouth. Human saliva contains salivary amylase, which is an absolute requirement to initiate the breakdown of carbohydrates.
Right. But here is where the modern human fails miserably. Most people swallow their food after chewing maybe, 3, 4, 5 times.
Yes.
I'm absolutely guilty of that. And this protocol demands a massive behavioral shift. The directive is to chew every single bite of complex carbohydrates or dense proteins exactly 30 times before swallowing.
Yes, 30 times.
You were literally instructed to transform the food into a completely liquid paste in your mouth. Now, I have to push back here. 30 chews per bite sounds exhausting. I'm eating at my desk. I have 10 minutes between meetings. Is turning my food into a literal paste really going to make a macroscopic difference to my energy levels and bloating?
Let's go back to the physics of the shipping containers. If you chew your food 5 times and swallow it, you are sending a massive, dense chunk of material down the assembly line.
Right.
Your internal stomach acid and enzymes can only attack the outside surface area of that chunk. The center remains completely intact and protected.
So the enzymes are just chipping away at the paint on the outside of the container.
Exactly. But if you crush that container into thousands of microscopic pieces before it ever leaves your mouth, you have dramatically destroyed the cellular walls of the food. You have massively increased the available surface area for stomach enzymes to attack.
Hundreds of times more surface area.
Yes. When that liquid paste hits your stomach, the enzymes can instantly surround and penetrate every single molecule. By chewing 30 times, you allow the salivary amylase to do a significant amount of the heavy lifting.
So your stomach doesn't have to work nearly as hard.
Exactly. And nothing survives to reach the scavengers in the large intestine.
Okay, I surrender to the physics. That makes total sense. You are manually doing the work so your internal organs don't get overwhelmed. So we've rebooted the nervous system with the 4-2-6 breathing. We've maximized the surface area by chewing 30 times.
Which brings us to the final mile.
Yes, the final step is Protocol 3, the postprandial gastric emptying walk. This is all about what happens immediately after the meal.
Right. Once the food is properly masticated and the internal enzymes are actively working, the final step is ensuring those dismantled materials actually move through the facility efficiently. You cannot allow them to stagnate so scavengers don't get to them.
The protocol is remarkably specific. It says to take a 10-minute, very low-intensity walk exactly 15 minutes after you finish eating. Now, my natural instinct after a massive meal is to immediately find a couch and lie down. That classic food coma. Am I physically sabotaging myself by surrendering to that instinct?
You are literally halting the assembly line. Sitting or lying down immediately after eating stalls gastric motility. The movement of food through your gastrointestinal tract relies on a process called peristalsis.
Those are the wave-like muscle movements of the GI tract, right?
Yes, smooth muscle contractions that push the material forward. When you lie down, you completely lose the mechanical advantage of gravity. Furthermore, you reduce the mild muscular contractions of your core that help massage the intestinal tract.
So by lying down, I'm trapping the shipping containers in the middle of the factory.
You are letting them sit still. And stagnant food is a breeding ground for bacterial interference. That gentle 10-minute walk utilizes gravity and mild muscular contractions to stimulate peristalsis.
It keeps things moving.
It ensures that the food, which is now thoroughly mixed with enzymes, moves swiftly through the stomach and the small intestine. You are physically walking the nutrients into your bloodstream and moving the waste away from the scavengers. You are drastically reducing the window of time that any undigested particles have to sit around and ferment.
Wow. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we usually view a flat stomach as purely an aesthetic achievement, wanting to look good in a swimsuit or whatever. But looking through this clinical lens, a flat, quiet stomach is actually a physiological reflection of a perfectly functioning, highly efficient internal ecosystem.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes, it is the ultimate indicator that your nervous system, your mechanical breakdown process, and your gastric motility are all communicating and operating in perfect harmony.
It means your body is actually extracting the fuel you are giving it. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We have gone on a real aha journey today. We started with the realization that the agonizing pressure of bloating isn't just trapped air, it is a biochemical bottleneck.
It's the scavengers in your large intestine creating a toxic exhaust because your internal workers couldn't break down the heavy shipments fast enough.
And we learned that fixing this doesn't require extreme elimination diets. It requires a fundamental return to our biology. You use parasympathetic breathing to signal safety to your vagus nerve.
You used 32 mastication to physically multiply the surface area of your food.
And you use a post-meal walk to maintain the transit speed of your digestion. When you combine those 3 zero-cost behaviors, you aren't just preventing the food baby, you are unlocking macroscopic improvements in your daily energy levels and your cognitive clarity.
It completely changes your relationship with digestion. It transforms it from a passive, unpredictable event that happens to you into an active, managed system that you control.
Which brings us right back to that moment at the dinner table, subtly trying to unbutton your pants.
Yeah.
You now know the exact mechanics of what is happening in that moment and exactly how to prevent it. But we want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to explore on your own.
Something to mull over.
Yeah. If something as incredibly simple as how we breathe and how many times we chew our food can fundamentally dictate whether our body extracts valuable nutrients or creates toxic internal chaos, what other vital automatic bodily functions are we completely unintentionally sabotaging through the rushed, stressed-out pace of modern life?